You are about to see a Canadian film presentation brought to you by your telephone organization, a member of the Trans-Canada Telephone System. 7 major telephone companies united to serve Canada. Maritime Telegraph and Telephone Company Limited, the New Brunswick Telephone Company Limited, the Bell Telephone Company of Canada, the Manitoba Telephone System, Saskatchewan Government Telephones, Alberta Government Telephones, British Columbia Telephone Company. Together, these 7 telephone companies give you a coast-to-coast service as the Trans-Canada Telephone System. And now, your telephone organization proudly presents a story of Canadian achievement. Listen carefully. Did you hear it? That sound represents a new kind of message flashing from tower to tower, winging across the nation at the speed of light. Let's find out who's sending it.
Long distance.
These messages that leap across the sky are telephone calls, given wings by a marvelous new development. In our growing land, people need to call each other more often. They need new services. The click of the keys is the symbol of a nation in touch. Talking across the country is a matter of a moment.
Vancouver, Marine 22341, right.
We take it for granted until we come to look at Canada. By nature, it is a land of enormous distances. The farmer's plow hardly scratches the surface of a giant like this, whose smallest veins are rivers. Limitless forests, cross-cut with myriad lakes, straddle its chest. Its backbone, Precambrian rock. Its heart, an inland sea, deceptively tranquil. Journey over the flatland, the prairies of the west. Go further to the foothills, to the start of the mountains. Climb up through the Rockies, see the panorama of a continent at last unfold. This is Canada, nearly 4 million square miles of it separating sea from sea. Faced with such distances, keeping in touch has been just as important in every age. Slogging through snow is a mighty slow way of delivering a message. And paddling miles is a lot of hard work in order to talk to somebody. Sailing vessels could take passengers faster. And the coming of steam enabled folks to get together even quicker. But still, on land, the speed of a horse limited the number of people you could call on in a day. And even automobiles couldn't go far. Bringing people together was the triumph of the railways. By now, telegraphs could carry messages, but to talk to someone meant a visit. Sending your voice without having to go yourself awaited the development of the telephone.
Hello? I'm trying to connect you. Go ahead, please.
Now, through the miracle of Bell's invention, voices traveled everywhere by wire. Conversations speeded along electrical paths. Now, for the first time, man could send his voice across incredible distances. But the voice had to arrive in good shape without getting mixed up with other calls on the way. These days, the loneliest farmhouse keeps in touch by telephone. So does Grandma and the folks she knows. No place is too remote for a serviceman to add a new line. And nowadays, you don't have to be indoors to place your call. On the highways, mobile services mean that moving vehicles can keep in touch. In emergencies, there is a direct line to the hospital. An Atlantic fisherman offers his catch for sale the quickest way he knows. Radio telephone is a godsend in the bush. New mining developments are pushing the lines to the north. In the west, in the oil fields, telephone lines are used to supervise and control the pumps and pipelines without anyone having to be there. In the east, the mighty equipment of a great hydro dam is turned on and off by telephone signals from the control room. Instant communications are essential to the conduct of government and are the vital lifeline of our system of national defense. In industry, new demands for services are growing. This firm relays its orders for concrete by teletype. This is a sort of a typewriter that sends printed words over telephone lines. The actual written word is instantly available to the men on the job. Other machines using paper tape simultaneously send out orders to every part of this automobile plant. On the production line, the men read the same message as is being received by the ordering and accounting departments. Automatically typed in multiple copies, the customer's written specifications keep step with every job. Pictures, too, over telephone channels, like this weather map. And so it goes on, in office after office throughout the country, the never-ending demand for all kinds of communication, more people to talk to every year, more orders to get out, more people who must be told things fast. Everywhere, the growing nation must keep in touch. It must talk, for talking is life. To anticipate these needs, the Trans-Canada Telephone System decided to build a new kind of highway across the nation. The new system would carry TV from coast to coast and provide thousands of extra telephone circuits. This shows how it works. As the demonstrator turns on music, a beam of very short radio waves called microwaves carries it between the towers. Think of the antenna as the lens of a searchlight continually beaming out phone calls and TV programs fed into it from amplifying equipment in an adjoining building. Anything cutting the radio beam cuts off the signal. Since these radio waves behave much like light waves, an ordinary lens made of glass will focus them like the antenna does. Though a metal lens will focus them even better. This kind of hollow pipe carries the beam between the antenna and the radio equipment. Let's watch it once more. The signal travels to the top of the tower, where it is focused on the next station 30 miles away to be amplified and passed on again. Each receiving station strengthens the signal about 1,000,000 times. Instead of placing all the towers in a straight line, the path is arranged in a zigzag pattern. This is to make sure that the signal from one tower, as it passes the mark, is not picked up by an antenna farther along the route. Now, theory is put into practice. Crews go into the field to test each location.
Here in Quebec City, high above the city streets, our crew has set up a temporary tower on top of the telephone building. This is lightweight microwave equipment, easy to erect and dismantle because we're always on the move, making sure that every place chosen as a site for a tower is going to work. George and Pierre are two engineering students from Laval University who are working with us for their vacation. Good boys. At the moment, they're trying to get in touch with their teammates at the next site, about 30 miles away. 30 miles is about as far as a microwave signal can ordinarily be sent. Otherwise, the curve of the Earth's surface gets in the way. And since any obstacle in the path of the beam would cut off the signal, the antennas are mounted on towers tall enough to clear every possible obstruction. Each antenna has to be placed fair and square in line with the other and adjusted so that it hits its target exactly at a range of 30 miles. This takes a bit of doing. Back on the telephone building, George is setting up his test equipment. He's still got a year to complete at university, but he's certainly learned a lot about microwave systems. We have to make dozens of tests before we're satisfied with each location. But eventually, we get everything to our liking. This portable equipment operates on exactly the same principle as the model you saw earlier. The antenna on the tower feeds the incoming message into a flexible pipe, which leads it down to the receiver, located in this case in a truck. Trucks like these have been busy all over the country, though at times the going was tough, particularly when you had to build your own roads. In province after province, the field crews put up their test towers at the points selected on the map. More than 170 sites to be tested. Access roads to be built. Specifications to be got out. Checking the route for the relay stations is like building the whole line in miniature. Out in the Rockies, the going is rather slow, but there are advantages. It's a pleasant life, and the scenery is out of this world. In very rugged areas, crew members have to keep in touch with their base by means of walkie-talkie. Because of the size of the job and of Canada, the line takes several years to build, but link by link, the project moves forward. Now the first phase is over. The task of testing and checking the path is completed. Field engineers give place to construction crews. Up in northern Ontario, the terrain is nearly as rugged as the Rockies. Around Lake Nipigon, for instance, roads have to be blasted out of solid rock. Even automobiles find it hard going up the steep grades, and we have plenty of problems with the heavier pieces of equipment. Trying to get the 4 footings for the tower completed before the snow puts plenty of pressure on the crew. And while the drillers kick up the dust in the excavations, the rest of the gang are preparing the concrete. At last, we're ready for the big pour. 160 cubic yards of it. 40 yards of concrete for each of the 4 legs of the tower. All this work for just one tower. And more than 170 towers to be built. You need plenty of brawn as well as brains to put up steel for the towers. Unfortunately, the parts don't come in sets like Meccano. Finding the right piece can sometimes be a problem. Progress is continually checked against the specifications. If they have to give instructions, steelmen make use of their own system of communication. Regardless of weather, the job moves ahead. Of course, you can't hoist the antennas in a wind like this. But new equipment arrives daily, and other parts of the job continue despite the cold. At last, the day breaks bright and clear. It's 0 hour for hoisting the horns. Special day, this. All morning, preparations have been going on. We give each of the huge horns a final inspection. Like the lens of a lighthouse, each one has to be placed with the utmost care. A plastic cover, transparent to microwaves, protects it from the elements. By the time we start hoisting, the wind has begun to get up again. It's a tense half hour for the crew, who are all old hands at this job. The horn weighs nearly a ton. A fraction too much tension on a line might send it crashing into the steelwork. For all its size, the antenna is constructed with the greatest precision. A dent as small as 1/8 of an inch deep in its mirror-like inside surface might interfere with the long-distance call or television picture. Minute by minute, the metal monster is inched to the top of the tower. Once positioned, it'll be as firm as a rock. The towers are so solidly built that the antennas won't sway more than a single degree out of true, even in a 100-mile-an-hour gale. Besides the horns, there's plenty of other equipment to be installed at a microwave station. The incoming signal is carried down to an amplifier to be given fresh power and shot back up again. The men who man the line come from all sections of the Trans-Canada telephone system. Technicians like Bob and Joe working at this exchange are taken off their normal jobs to train at a central school. For though the microwave network is a brand new development, the men who look after it must first be familiar with telephone equipment. This is the school where men like Bob and Joe come to study basic electronics and microwave theory. Here, radio components are put together on a demonstration panel where they actually work. With intensive instruction, students soon come to grips with the new ideas and begin to do things for themselves. There's no time to spare when you're training for a job on the network. In the laboratory, the students mostly work in pairs, each pair being assigned technical problems to solve on their own initiative. By actually doing the job, they learn the skills they'll eventually apply on the line itself.
Canada's microwave chain is like a picket fence designed to stretch from the Atlantic to the Pacific, nearly 4,000 miles. 139 stations are needed for the main highway, with an additional 38 stations providing spur lines to the principal regions not on the main route. Not only is it the longest single microwave system in the world, it is also among the most reliable.
At special alarm centers throughout the length of the line, technicians watch to see that every unit is working the way it ought to. Amazing automatic equipment built into every unattended station tells the technicians exactly what's going on by means of warning signals and illuminated panels. Because the equipment itself answers questions and obeys orders, as well as asks for help, maintenance crews are able to keep on top of their jobs by remote control. It's only in the odd case that a man has to be sent out.
Besides all the new telephone channels provided by microwave, the system also carries television programs. Here we are inside a CBC studio a few moments before a show goes on the air.
Stand by, everyone. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fade in camera 1.
Upstairs in the control room, the producer is selecting the picture he wants to go out over the network. Now he brings in a second studio. From the television studio, the signal goes to the monitoring screens at the telephone building. Here, the signal is fed into the microwave system and sent out to the first microwave tower, in this case at Montreal. In slow motion, let's watch the signal traveling eastward. From tower to tower, the program leaps across 180 miles of country to Quebec City. At each tower, the signal is strengthened and passed on in the twinkling of an eye. Now the line dips south to Fredericton and on through the Maritimes. As we reach St. John, the line turns northeastward. In Nova Scotia, the signal splits. One tower beams it to Prince Edward Island. And a spur line takes it to Halifax. The main line, meanwhile, continues through scenic Cape Breton on the last leg of its journey to Sydney. Here, the network program arrives at the local TV station where it goes on the air. Tuned to their local channel, families on the Atlantic coast see the program the instant it leaves the studio. In the other direction, the television program is hurrying westward from Montreal. Other towers pass it on to Ottawa. The march of the towers continues until it reaches the telephone building at Toronto. Now the line takes a turn to the north as the towers stride through Ontario on their way west. North Bay knows that its tower is a sure link with its neighbors. This invisible skyway is as big a step in communications as the Transcontinental Railway was in transportation. From Fort William, the line goes west again until the prairies start. And all at once, you're at Winnipeg. Skirting the city itself, the line ties in with local TV and telephone systems through its tower at Fort Rouge. Now begins the long trek across the flatlands. Through the wheat belt, the towers pick their way to Regina, and across the boundary into the province of Alberta. Then west to Calgary. Foothill country is passed in a moment as the route prepares to leap across the Rockies. What once took Alexander Mackenzie months to cross can now be hurdled in a fraction of a second. Hurtling down the mountainside, the program reaches Vancouver, but it doesn't stop there. Over to Victoria. Voice and picture, television and telephone. The highway of the sky becomes the eyes and ears of the nation. A highway 4,000 miles long. A continent linked in a 50th of a second. A new sense of unity created for every Canadian family. Ready to carry any kind of communications, this vast project speeds the nation's progress. In no other country on earth do people rely more on the telephone than in Canada. And there are more people to talk to every year. More orders to get out. More people who must be told things fast. Everywhere, the growing nation seeks to express itself. And through the mouthpiece of the telephone, a magic link is forged across a continent. we are living at the dawn of a new day. Look up and see where a path through the sky begins a new page in the story of a nation in touch.